just turned.
I call the meeting order. I'd like to have a pledge of allegiance by me and Mr. Moy, could you do?
Yeah. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father God, we are gathered today to take care of the business of the Transportation Sales Tax Advisory Committee. We ask that we make good decisions for our citizens. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. Welcome. We have a Councilman Joe Arzillo here today. And we'll go from there. Ms. Schaefer, you are up.
Great. All right. Well, good morning.
Good morning.
You
Good morning.
all. At your last meeting, we talked about the ordinance to stand up the Greenbelt portion of this sales tax, and you all made a recommendation to send that to Jasper County Council for review and approval. And we also talked about the draft application and the scoring rubric that you would use to evaluate what makes a good Greenbelt project for Jasper County. And you all recommended sending that to Jasper County Council for review and approval. And today's topic is about the green print map. Just so everybody has a starting point for where conservation priorities are in Jasper County. And, some counties create their own green print map, hire a consultant, do some natural resource data analysis. I would offer to you that a lot of that work has already been done, and you would be smart to use the work that is presented and already available to you. So in your agenda packet is a map from the South Carolina State Conservation Bank, and it has been narrowed down to show the priority lands in Jasper County. But they do this work across the whole state. The State Conservation Bank is a state agency that's been around for about 25 years, and it has protected thousands of acres of land with Department of Natural Resources and Parks, Recreation, and Tourism, the Forestry Commission with private land trusts. I just attended one of their bank board meetings up in Spartanburg this week where they awarded about $10 million to 26 projects across the state. So they're very good at what they do, and they have a robust mapping effort between their agency and the Department of Natural Resources that updates land protection priorities annually. So I think this is a great starting map for Jasper County because it does have the most recent data, and it will continue to be updated. And then you all as a county can continue to make updates as well. The full suite of information that goes beyond just the map you see in your agenda packet has been sent to your GIS department, and everything is, what I would say, able to be zoomed in on. And so you can actually look area by area, category by category, at particular projects. And I think this will be really helpful. For some perspective, when a land trust or a natural resource agency like DNR submits a project to the Conservation Bank, that's exactly what they do. And they actually look at the map in 12 categories, and that helps inform the score that property gets. And so the map is just, again, it's not an absolute, but it's a helpful guide to you, and I just want to talk a little bit about it. But are there questions about the State Conservation Bank and the overview and why this map might be helpful before I dive into the specifics?
Mr. Moy?
No, I'm good.
Mayor?
No,
No. Mayor?
Okay, so the most recent public mapping report presented by the Conservation Bank provides some top line data for the state. There are about 20 million acres in South Carolina, 3 million of which is protected. And statewide, the bank has identified 8.6 million as conservation priorities, medium or high. There are about 2.5 that are identified within that 8.6 as high priority. And if you look at your Jasper County map, I think it's safe to assume that a lot of that high priority land is right here in Jasper County. It's what shows up as red on your map. So if that's your first visual takeaway, you're doing a great job reading the map. High priority land for land protection does exist here in Jasper County. This is shown not only at the county level, but if you look nationally, we have high priority landscapes right here in the county. So model after model continues to show this, and that is certainly true according to the state. In Jasper County specifically, the state has identified 428,000 and some change total acres. Again, about 86,000 of that is currently protected. So you're sitting at about 20% of the county that's currently protected. And 298,000 is listed as medium to high priority according to this map. So it is about 70% of the county that falls into that medium or high priority category. So again, at first blush, if you're looking at this map and you think, wow, there's a lot of high priority land protection, you're right. The map doesn't narrow your work down too much, but I think just reaffirms what voters affirmed when they went to the polls, which is it's going to be really helpful to have local dollars available to protect this high priority landscape. The cost of losing it would in fact be much higher. And then your GIS team is going to have access to all of this data, but the data layers that go into creating this composite map are broken into individual categories. So one data layer looks at conservation corridors. That's, priority landscapes. If you're already next to over 500 acres of protected land, that's a good thing for habitat and conservation. Conservation corridors also evaluates land that's important to the military. As you learned with the protection of Gregory Neck, our Department of Defense has a great interest in the forested land and farmland here in Jasper County because pilots fly over this all the time. And then priority corridors up river systems and within salt marsh. There's another subcategory that talks about the ecological conservation priority. This speaks to state species of concern. So when you think about the flatwood salamander and the gopher tortoise and the red-cockaded woodpecker, there are several species that are identified by the state of South Carolina as important to protect. And in Jasper County, this subcategory map really lights up priorities along the Savannah River, in Levy, along the Broad River corridor. The map also is going to look at the economic component of land protection. So there's a subcategory that talks about sustainable forestry and agriculture. In the forestry model, it's going to look at things like distance to mills, the availability of managed forest land and timber, and forest stands that are currently healthy. That's a land cover data set that's produced nationally and analyzed at the state level. In Jasper County around Ridgeland, think about like the Turkey Hills property that's going to come up as high priority on the sustainable forestry side. There's also a sustainable agriculture sub-map. It's going to look at things like soil drainage and agriculture productivity. So even if a piece of property is fallow farmland, if those prime soils show up on the map, that's going to be data that's available to you. Jasper County has a medium priority on sustainable agriculture, pretty widespread throughout the county. Another subcategory is going to look at water resources. There's some national data talking about forests to faucets. So we get our drinking water from the Savannah River. It makes sense to suggest that if we want to continue to have clean drinking water, or at least lower water treatment bills, because it's cheaper to treat clean water from the get-go than to treat dirty water, we want to have a healthy Savannah River watershed. And so in your county, the Levy New River area is also going to light up as high priority. The water resources layer also looks at water near what's been identified by DHEC as outstanding resource waters, and the New River is an outstanding resource water, so that's why that Levy area will show up. And then the final subcategory are public trails and vistas, so things that are identified as scenic vistas along roads and trails, like the Liberty Trail, the Scenic Highway 462, scenic waterways, and then it's also going to analyze proximity to people. because, what good are all of these scenic vistas if there are not very many people around to enjoy them? And that's going to show up as high priority here in Jasper County as well. So those are the subcategories that your GIS team is going to be able to zoom in on. If you have a property or an application come before you and you want some data from the map, that's the type of data that the map is going to give you. Maps don't protect land. They give you an idea of why a piece of property could or should be protected. And I think this is a great foundation and would recommend that you consider including it as a reference in the ordinance and in the application. And I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Mr. Moy?
No, sound like you got a lot of work ahead of you, but you said that you have most of it contained already, but I like what I have.
Great.
Mr. Mayor?
Oh, go ahead.
Are you finished? You finished?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor?
Kate, of the red areas, the high priority areas, are a lot of those wetlands? And where I'm getting with the question, there's a lot of red, but if they're protected by definition,
Sure.
we don't necessarily would have to have them as high priority for purchase. Does it make sense for us in our $95 million expenditures to spend that money on areas that have potential development that would go on?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Again, this is a map of conservation priorities. I think what you will look at to answer your question, which is where are we spending our money most efficiently, is when the map and the property specific information comes into account with the purchase price or the easement value based on the appraisal. And so, if a property contains a jurisdictional wetland, your independent third-party appraiser that's assessing the value of that property is not going to count on that acreage for development, right? Because that is essentially, to your point, off the table for development. And so you may have, a small property that has a high dollar value because it is majority uplands. And you're going to be able to look at this map and say, this property is expensive, yes, but it's a lot of uplands and those uplands are high priority. And you may have a property that's larger, that's lower, that has a lower purchase price because has a lot of jurisdictional wetlands. And you're going to be able to look at this map and say, we're still protecting conservation value, even if we're not paying financial value. And so those two things are going to mix together. And that's why in your application, it's recommended that there's a score for the financial efficiency of the project and the conservation efficiency. But it's really in the appraisal and the financial assessment of a property where that question about what is truly developable is going to come into play. And I think that's also an important question you ask of your applicants when you ask applicants to identify the threat of development. And that's a recommended question in your application as well. And that's something the Beaufort Green Space Program is grappling with when they review projects too. What is the threat of development? But that's how that's all going to be factored in. Does that answer your question?
Yes, I mean, my main...
So there are wetlands on this map, right? And those wetlands may be high conservation priority, so they may show up as red. But when you go to purchase a property, if the property has a lot of those wetlands, the value is going to be different than a property that is majority uplands.
Right. Yeah. I think with the limited amount of money that we have...
Absolutely.
The priority of buying land and conserving it and protecting it from development is more of a priority than buying land that's protected by definition.
Absolutely, I agree. And I think, you have an efficiency question always with this $94 million. You want the money to go as far as possible. Right. And so that means that you want applications that have funding partners like the military, like Beaufort County, like the State Conservation Bank, like the landowner himself or herself being able to donate some of the value because they want to see a conservation outcome. You want applications that are in the high priority area because there's a lot of high priority. So $94 million may not protect all the high priority, but let's be efficient as we can. And that's where those application questions about threat of development and funding matches and those types of things really are important.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
No more.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, you got
Yes,
any?
I don't have any questions.
Chairman Kemp, I would just add.
Can I ask my
yeah.
question first? Is going with the wetlands? I guess I'm neophyte in this. There are times when wetlands are in jeopardy.
Correct.
So would that be part? Would that show up in your questionnaire? Or
So again, it'll show up when you're looking at the National Wetlands Inventory. Will show up what wetlands are jurisdictional. You're correct that wetlands have varying levels of protection, and there have been court cases that have even recently changed those, and you may have just read about the town of Bluffton making the local ordinances stronger because the federal laws got a little weaker when it comes to wetlands. So there is absolutely the potential to fill a wetland, to develop a wetland. Quite honestly, transportation projects confront this all the time because, when you widen a major piece of infrastructure like I-95, you're going to impact wetlands. And the public benefit of impacting those wetlands to widen the infrastructure is real, right? And that's when you start entertaining conversations about wetland mitigation, and the state and the DOT does a good job of managing wetland mitigation banks to make sure for every wetland you fill, you also protect or restore an acre of wetlands somewhere else. And you want that to be nearby the impact, ideally, but there's mitigation banks that handle that. This is, again, a different question than a mitigation bank, but I think that's where your question is coming from. So again, in the narrative of the application, you would, I think, put the burden on your applicant to describe the property, and if jurisdictional wetlands, federally, under the jurisdiction of the Army Corps of Engineers, they're going to be the last to develop, although, and feasibly you could get a permit at some point. And then the vulnerable wetlands, you would describe that in the application. And then there's national wetlands inventory data that shows where exactly those are. Sometimes, for projects, you require a wetlands delineation to show that. And so that's all information that would be available on the project level. And that's also information that's going to be reflected in the third-party appraisal of value. They're not going to, and a good appraiser is not going to assume you can go in and fill a bunch of wetlands without cost. But that will come out in the value.
who? And I guess this is a question that may have been asked before, but who would be the ones that would apply for these grants? Would it be some of the conservation groups, or would it be individuals, or?
So right now it's recommended that it is land trusts, state agencies, so like if Department of Natural Resources, or if a land trust like the Open Land Trust or Low Country Land Trust or Ducks Unlimited or the Nature Conservancy. If the county, if the town wanted to apply for a park or something like that, those are listed applicants. Independent third parties, I forget the exact verbiage in the ordinance as recommended, but foreseeing a situation where the South Carolina Battleground Trust may come in and purchase or want to protect a piece of property that is an important battleground or historic site. Having that like third party accreditation, whether it be on the conservation side, being a state agency or an accredited land trust, or as in 501c3 that has experience in managing protected property. I don't think you want just an individual landowner without the understanding of how else it's going to be protected. But if an individual landowner wants to do an easement, he or she would work with a land trust. If an individual landowner wants to sell to the town for a park, he or she would work with the town. And that's where I think you'd see that come through.
And one final, would this also say that if we go in partnership, let's say with Hampton County or Beaufort County, would that be available to this, or how do we?
Yeah, so the Beaufort County Green Space Program allows the county to invest in land protection outside of the county. So you saw that when the county contributed, Beaufort County contributed $1 million to the easement on Gregory Neck. And they're considering contribution to the Chelsea property in Jasper County. So, you know, I think if you created some sort of partnership, park, or opportunity with the other counties, that would really be a legal question for your attorneys, and I'd defer to them and their advice. But certainly within the realm of possibility, you know, on the natural resource side, I think the most important takeaway that, you know, we have is that natural resources and water quality and habitat and birds that fly, you know, from place to place don't know when they cross county lines. You know, the Broad River, the water quality of the Broad River is not just water quality in Beaufort County or water quality in Jasper County, it's the whole system, and actually all the way up to Hampton and Allendale. Same thing with the Savannah. You know, when we talk about the health of our drinking water, we're involving upper Savannah counties, like, you know, around Aiken and Augusta and downstream from there. So there is definitely a regional push, just like there's a regional understanding of growth. And, you know, the drivers on 170 don't pay attention to county lines, you know, neither do the birds or the healthy river systems.
Mr. Fulgham, would you know by any chance about that? If this would be able to do that?
Oh, yes, sir. Well, we know, as Kate just said, from our bond attorneys, you have the ability to spend the money outside the county. You have the ability to contract with other counties and other jurisdictions if you'd like to. So.
Well, I'm just saying, just in case, like Beaufort was a perfect example, and Beaufort would say, we're going to buy property, so we could be part of it.
Yes, sir. And vice versa. Yes, sir.
Right. Just want to make sure.
Yeah.
I have no other
The
questions.
big bright line is, you know, spending the money according to the bond referendum itself,
Right.
because that's what the voters approved. And I think this map supports that as well. I would say, again, your GIS department is going to have boat landing data that can be added to this map, and like historic resource data. And so that's a great way to localize it as well. Good information.
Fine. Everybody fine?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Great,
Appreciate
thank you.
it.
Thanks, Kate.
Thank you very much. Mr. Iwanicki, how are you?
Excellent.
Did he say that right, Jim?
What's that?
Did he say that right?
I answered to it all.
In other words, no. That was a flavor.
Officially, it's Iwaniki. Just an update on the roadside. We did get 4 firms that submitted RFQs, qualifications to be our program manager. The scoring team determined that ICE, Infrastructure Consulting Engineers, was the most favorable at this point in time. We are currently discussing with them contract terms. Our goal is to meet the week of July 7th with them and hammer out the final details. And hopefully we can bring that to this body for approval in July. The other thing that went on is I did get a message from our LATS people. We have the Triangle Project and the 278 that had funding for 2025, and we moved that to 2026. It's just going to be a transfer until we, as a group, determine whether we want to keep those projects federalized or if we want to use just local funds on them. So again, the money that was set aside for those projects in 25 has been moved to 26, and we will work on that later this year to see if we keep those on the tip or if we take them off and again make those projects local. That's what I got. Any questions?
Go ahead.
I'm looking over the preference to priorities of the projects, and I'm a little concerned about the Levy Road. I don't know if you guys travel that Levy Road down there, but it is very dangerous. Also, all of the buildings that they're building in that area, that road needs to be aligned more sooner than later. Exit 3 is coming up that way. That's going to be a nightmare if we don't get Levy Road together. I want to thank the county and the state for paving that road because it's been terrible forever. And recently they paved the whole road, and so that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. It may take some time off of that, but I think that we really need to look in that area because that area is just booming.
Mr. Mayor?
Um,
excuse me, I'm sorry. Got two mayors up here.
A couple ones. First, it might be easy. I think when I read Jasper County and ICE are currently working together, that may not be a timely acronym to be using. Maybe we want to come up with something different. I don't want to have the public misconstrue what that says. Do you think that's a good idea? Number two, I would echo Mr. Moy, because I did drive that entire area, coming up with, for another reason, but trying to learn more of what's going on down there. And APAC is doing a lot of work in that area, but certainly that should be a high priority. But I did want to point out that the stuff on the higher priorities, they were put there because the design and engineering would take a long time. So my last comment would be, Jim, we don't know when Beaufort County is going to put their piece of the triangle puzzle. And I thought we had discussed that it would be quicker to make this a local project rather than federal and not get caught up in all the federal red tape. So if we do stay local, can't we keep that on the tip 2025? What's your advice there?
In talking with Stephanie at Bats, it wasn't going to hurt us to move it to 26. And they have to make their final amendment coming up here at their next meeting. So all we're doing is we're kicking that down the road to make the final decision when we have final information that yes, we do want to make it local. That's my thought, but until our program manager takes a look at it and we take a look at the total funding and
So
give that information.
We want to give this, what you call it, instead of ICE, twice time to look at it.
Yes,
is what you're saying.
Yes, we want to make I'm making an educated guess right now. I want to know facts for you to say this is the best for the dollars, this is the best for the community.
You want that recommendation from that company?
Yes.
I understand. Fine. Thank you.
Mayor Malphurs?
No, sir, not at this time.
I agree. We talked about this before the meeting. I was shocked because I got another email right above it about ICE and what they were doing and all that. And I said, all of a sudden this comes up and I'm saying, what? You know? So we got to figure another name for that.
I'm sure we can come up with another.
Yeah. And I guess this is it's going to be set the date, but I think that maybe we should wait until August for the next meeting so we can give Jim a lot of time to make sure that he's got everything right and everything set down. And once we get that person put on board, do we have to agree to that, or is that a county thing?
Yes, sir. I was going to suggest that Jim had talked about coming back to you once the contract is ready with ICE. And I really don't think that's your purview or necessary. That goes to the county council for approval. We just wanted you to all understand what that process was. And then I'm sure Jim will be working with them as quickly as possible for them to give us some initial direction. Is that right, Jim?
Yes.
So we're saying August would be a better, but we'll discuss it at the general.
Yes, sir.
So, well, we're in general discussion. Is there any general discussion, Mr. Moy?
I'm pretty good.
Mayor Williams?
Jim, are you comfortable with August? That you're ready? Or would you prefer July? What's your comfort zone?
My comfort zone is, I think it's going to be kind of the middle to end of July if we work out a contract with ICE that's agreeable. Again, there's
Work to be done.
There's work to be done. The question that Mr. Kemp asked is, does that come here for a recommendation to county council? It's not necessary, but that was the discussion, and what Andy has stated is that it could just go to county council. So again, I think that's their question for our county council. Do they want that recommendation from this board before they approve, or do they just want to approve?
Personally, time is of the essence. We all know, unless we disagree today with your selection, and I don't hear that, I'd say go to county council as soon as you can. That's my 25% advice.
Mr. Kemp, I was going to say, you're interested in the product of the program manager as soon as possible. Those are your interests. You want to see one.
And we're not challenging their selection,
Correct.
so
Correct.
Unless I hear challenge, and I'm not hearing it.
Given that, Mr. Chairman, what we would like to do then is we present it to the county council. We will say we have discussed it with the advisory
We've
committee.
discussed it.
And you had no issues with it, if that's okay.
Well, okay. We only have one meeting in July,
Right.
and that and the fact that right now the budget is number priority. On the 30th, we'll know what's going to happen in July. So
August is, okay.
I mean, for us, August doesn't hurt anybody,
Right.
right? But we'll have a better chance to know what the county did, and then we go proceed from there.
That's why I asked him what his comfort level is, because I think we should go with what he's comfortable with.
I talked to the treasurer, and Mayor Malphus. I'm sorry.
No, sir, I don't have anything.
I talked to the treasurer, and he has set up a account. He hasn't received any money from the state yet, which I'm sure we didn't expect. But he said he had a separate account, and again, this is for the administrator. Should we have two accounts for this transportation tax? One for the 80% and one for the 20%?
I don't believe so at this point. I don't have clear direction from the bond council on that, but it is, the Greenbelt is simply a project. As you'll see how it was listed on the ballot, it is one of the projects, and that's how other places do it. So one is fine as long as we can show and segregate that for you. Along those lines, we're asking our current audit provider to give us a side proposal to do a separate annual audit as is required by the referendum ordinance for this. And I did assist Mr. Skinner in that process of setting up the account and making sure that everyone understands that we still have one from 2016 and that those are segregated accounts and that those are not in any way to be commingled.
Are we going to be setting up a website or separate or within the county?
Your program manager will be doing that for you.
No, I said that's a good thing.
Yeah. So, and a GIS map, would that be on our website also, specifically to that? Before the website?
It will be. As it's developed, they will work with the program manager, and I'm sure we'll have all that together in one place for you.
So the information has to wait until we get the program manager.
Right, and our GIS, I believe, has bits and pieces now and is putting it all together.
I'm just want to make sure that we give the information out as fast as possible.
Yes, sir.
Because again, in the papers, you'd seen the papers, and I'm going to go Buford, unfortunately. They're still having a problem with having information.
I think you're going to be pleased once the program manager is on board. They are going to be your go-to group for information. They will be able to provide information for you to go out and present at other meetings, all of you. So you can do that in the community, not just these meetings or council meetings. and have a public presence with all that information.
The program manager is kind of the road expert, but they will include and get the information and collect it for both the roadside and the conservation side. So that it will all be in one place, and they will be kind of the keepers of the information and creating that website and getting that information to the public.
How from going after we get the program manager, how does this committee work? Do they come to us first, or
You're going to receive recommendations from the program manager that will go through Jim, and then he'll discuss them with you. You'll have options about when and what and how, what the proper financing is, what the proper grant applications are. You will support those efforts, and we'll put that together in a package on the road stuff. You'll be doing design. They'll be doing a suggestion to let contracts with other engineers to do design work. So you'll be involved in all of that kind of thing. As far as the Greenbelt side, as soon as the program is put together, the applications will come in. And hopefully the county council will approve all of this and the method of how that's done. That those applications will be screened and reviewed for appropriateness, and they will ultimately come to you for your suggestion as to whether or not the county council should fund it.
and then we suggest to the county council, and they take the final.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mayor Williams.
If I could please, could we set the date and time for the next meeting? Because I do have another commitment that I need to leave.
Okay. Sometime in August. At the beginning, the first week in August, I think we have our association. When did you have your association?
We're in July.
July. Okay.
First week in August is the first week of school. So I don't know, is that a problem for you,
We
Ted?
got some activities during that week, you know.
Yeah, so you might want to check with the school calendar.
I will.
Before, if we set a date here, check with the school calendar, and make sure that Ted's.
But I'm pretty flexible though. Okay, so.
When is the association? Andy, when is the association? First, second, and third, isn't it, or something like that?
I believe it's usually that last week, yes, sir, of July and the first week of August. So
Right.
over that weekend. I was going to suggest, Mr. Chairman, if you might want to look at your calendars, the 18th is the county council meeting. Given that we have some of these parts and recommendations that you've already made, potentially going to council, if you would set your meeting after the 18th, I think that would be the most productive. We may or may not have something for the council to approve on the 18th, but I would sure like to be able to present after that, if that would be.
22nd? Friday?
22nd, Friday is open for me.
That's a Friday?
Friday.
Friday's good, I don't work.
Mr. Mayor?
I don't have my calendar, but I anticipate it should be okay.
Okay. So the next being August 22nd, 10 o'clock, and it will be in Hardyville.
If I may make a further suggestion, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
that a calendar invite be sent out to all the jurisdictions, including the school board, and set that date. And I would also ask that the agenda come out 1 week prior, which is would be Friday the 15th. It can be earlier, but I would suggest no later than that.
Okay. Well, 22nd, if you would check with your group to say the 22nd is fine. You're open.
I'm open.
No, you are open, but is your facility open?
Oh, okay. You want me to?
Just to verify that, and then I can set up what we're going to be.
Could you
And
send?
let me check, Mr. Chairman, if I will, once y'all get that confirmed, can you send out an email?
Yeah, I will send out an email.
The sooner the better.
I'll send it out.
That's why some kind of calendar by email, so it all becomes official on our book. Could you send me an email and Jennifer Combs about securing the rec center?
And so it's gonna be the recreation center you anticipate? Is that what I'm?
I would, if we're gonna have, or would you prefer council chambers?
I don't care. Whatever is available.
The acoustics are better in council chamber, and it should be able to accommodate. So let's go council chambers.
Okay. On the 22nd.
On the 22nd,
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock.
Is that okay with you, Mayor?
Yes, sir, that is, thank you, yes, sir.
Right across.
Well, he has to travel, so.
So, not Jennifer, Cindy, Oliver, and Josh, if you could send the three of us an email.
Not phones.
And no, because we'll do it at council chambers.
Okay.
May I be excused, Mr.
Yes.
Chair? Thank you.
Is there anything else before the board or council?
I vote against you being excused, no, sir.
You have to take a vote on that?
Yes, sir.
Oh, then if you hear nothing, do you have any discussion? Discussion there? Okay, hearing none, I'd like to have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thanks, Kate.
First motion is approved, and second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much for attending.
Yes, sir, thank you guys very much. Yes,